I think there were three main things this year that were quite revolutionary in world politics. One, of course, was the change in European politics as a result of the Ukraine crisis, borders being changed by force.
This year will go down in history as the year when the post-Cold War period was truly over, when we were confronted with an aggressive Russia intent of changing the status quo. But it's also the year when both the European Union and NATO had to find for themselves a new identity, a new existence, a new provision for the security in Europe.
Next year, something to watch will be whether Russia acts in any further aggressive capacity in other parts of the world to replicate a Ukraine situation. But I don't think that's particularly likely, but it will be interesting to see how that develops.
It will be a year in which military power will probably count for more than diplomatic activity, and brute force will again return to be a consideration in the way we evaluate strategic balance.
It will be interesting to see Russia with its fifth generation fighter program, but also to see whether it has success in exporting its latest flanker variants in order to actually integrate them into its own fighter force, given its budget problems with the falling ruble and oil price.
Next year is likely to be a year of frustrations for those following nuclear developments. Continuing negotiations with Iran are probably going to be jeopardized by Republican posturing in the US Congress over new sanctions, and nuclear developments vis-a-vis countries like Russia and North Korea are likely to get worse before they get better.
A second one was the establishment of Islamic State, and they're going to be there for some time in the Middle East. The Middle East is melting down. Two new states are emerging. At least 3 states are collapsing.
That's also caused some big shifts and realignments in regional policy for Western states. So now we see a lot of Western interests closer aligning with the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is something 18 months ago we could not have foreseen.
Over the past year, we've seen the phenomenon of foreign fighters coming back from fighting in Syria and Iraq. I think what we're going to see in this next year is we're going to see some of these cases coming to trial, and we'll start to see the actual shape and magnitude of the terrorist threat back to the United Kingdom.
The rise to prominence of ISIS in 2014 was perhaps the most significant development in relation to terrorism. However, it should not obscure the fact that the terrorist threat to the UK remains diverse.
As many people are forced into criminal activity to survive, organised crime groups are likely to take advantage of that. And the ongoing conflicts in Syria and elsewhere in the Middle East also present an opportunity for criminal activity. And so it's likely that criminal groups in these regions will have an interest in maintaining the war.
And the third thing is the effect of the Snowden revelations. The internet is about to go dark. The balance of power in cyberspace is about to change, and we will feel that in the next 2 or 3 years, starting next year.
5 years ago in the last SDSR, cybersecurity was not as big an issue as it is now. Tied to this will be this big debate over the level of intelligence surveillance that is conducted by the intelligence security services.
One of the things that will characterise next year is the election in Britain and the SDSR, the Strategic Defence and Security Review.
SDSR will bring uncertainty. That uncertainty will be associated with quite significant budgetary reductions, and will have a huge raft of programmatic change within the defence procurement space.
Like the last review in 2010, it will be sandwiched between an election and a comprehensive spending review, which means that it'll have to be done between June and October. That's the worst possible way to do a defence review, but that's the way we're going to do it. And like the 2010 review, it looks as if it will be based on further expenditure cuts. And the big question there, whatever the review comes out with, is whether this is taking us below the threshold of strategic significance.
So the key programmes that are going to go into the Strategic Defence Review in 2015 are Future Deterrent, New Maritime Patrol Aircraft, National Offensive Cyber Programme, Ballistic Missile Defence, New Frigates, and the F-35 Fighter Programme. How do you squeeze those into 1.6% of GDP?
2015, with the UK's Strategic Defence and Security Review, really has to be an opportunity for the UK as a whole to have a conversation about the types of armed forces it wants, the types of interventions it wants to be seen to be doing.
Next year will build on this year to really be, I think, a very important moment in China's history going forwards, and I think will help define its role and place in international affairs for the next 10 years. And I think going forwards into the next year, we're going to have the blueprints laid out for this Silk Road economic belt and this maritime Silk Road. This is really about building large economic and trade corridors that will basically connect China to large chunks of the world and start to make these places increasingly dependent on China economically.
The signing of the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership, a free trade agreement encompassing 12 countries in the region, will be key to deciding the future of the US pivot to Asia and to what extent the Asia-Pacific leans towards the United States or China in the coming years.
Looking ahead, I think the major challenge India will face, but also Iran, China, Pakistan, is the effect of the drawdown of foreign troops from Afghanistan. I think that will present them their most serious challenge in the next 12 months.